Thank you, Juliet. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome again. And I will now hand over to our first speaker. It's lecturer Xoliswa Lydia Mbelani from the Faculty of Education. And I'll just read out her title. It's Does Standardization Play a Role in Randomized Quiz Tests, Negotiating Accuracy, Transparency, Fairness, and Accountability? And I'll ask Matthew to just share the screen. Lecturer Lydia has decided to do a recording. So Matthew will just share the recording now for us to listen to. Thank you so much.
A very good morning to all my colleagues out there. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Stollenkamp and her team for inviting me to come and share my online assessment practice with colleagues. This is the question that has been worrying me since we started with online teaching and learning. Does standardization play a role in randomized tests? Negotiating accuracy, transparency, fairness, and accountability. This is a brief outline of my presentation. I decided to look at the definition of my key concepts. A standardized test is described as a method of assessment that is built on the principle of consistency, where all test takers are required to answer the same questions and all answers are graded in the same and predetermined way. To randomize tests or quizzes is to arrange them in an irregular and haphazard order. Reflecting on my 2020 assessment method, I used a traditional way of examining students where I prepared one online assessment with a memorandum. All students wrote the assessment at the same time, which was an hour long. The students were allowed to see their scores after the completion of each and every assessment. Timeously, students requested memorandums for all the assessment that we did, and it was easy for me to forward the memorandums to them. I was also excited to entertain students' questions that were raised from the written tasks. 2020 findings. Majority of my students scored high marks, which was concerning because I knew a lot of them were struggling with most of the concepts that we did. 2021, I had to come up with a turnaround strategy. I was advised in a workshop by Mr. Terence Torres on how to prepare a pool of questions that will be randomized. I currently have 17 pools of questions ranging from 10 to 52 questions per pool, where I had the different questions, fill in the missing word, true, false, and a lot of multiple choice questions. The students were made aware that our quizzes and tests will be randomized at the beginning of the semester this year. Students therefore wrote randomized quizzes that were all written after every concept. Most students would never complain about randomization of quizzes. For my major test, I prepared a pool of challenging higher order questions that required students to work out their solutions, even though I had a well-structured test with almost 3 parts of the mentioned questions. Challenges that came up with the randomization of tests. Students asked for their individual tests that they wrote from the randomized questions that were prepared. Some students started to complain that they wrote mostly the challenging questions from the randomized questions. A concerned parent questioned this randomization of questions as to how it will assist my evaluation if the test is set at different levels. For me, randomization of questions encouraged fairness, reliability, and quality assurance of the student results. In conclusion, online assessment demands the following from the lecturer's point of view: a high level of accuracy when drafting questions. Lecturers need to keep lines of communication open, especially for those students who want clarity concerning some questions. That will help ensure transparency, fairness, and accountability. I still have the two following concerns. How does one standardize online assessment that provide quality, reliability, validity, and still make it fair for all students? How do we familiarize our students and parents that randomization of questions for assessment purposes is another alternative that will help maintain fairness, reliability, and quality assurance of the students' results?